Once we feel into the experience that we are having now, we can alchemize it in our hearts and transform it into something that we want to create.
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I am your host, my name is Karolina, and I am the Connection Catalyst. I help spiritual entrepreneurs experience deeper connection with themselves, with others, and with the universe. Today on the show we have Jesse Simpson, the Transformational Coach. Welcome to the show, Jesse. How are you doing?
Hi, Karolina. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm feeling really good and grateful about life right now.
Oh, amazing. I'm feeling super grateful about life as well, especially that we were just talking about our grander vision for this podcast and for the Soul Fam in general, for that to be the social networking app for conscious people all over the world. And this very topic got me already excited very, very much about the future, about the community. And we were just talking about briefly about the community. So how about we start our chat from Humans in Harmony, the community that you have created? Because I feel like it's a topic that we really need to talk about and gather people, especially in pandemics where people feel isolated, feel lonely. They need this kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit about your community.
Absolutely, Carolina. And I think it's just amazing as I've started to work towards this. Maybe you've experienced the same, but once we start to get clear in our vision of what we want in the world and we start to move forward on it, the people, the synchronicities, all these things keep showing up. And I feel like that's why we're here today. And people listening to this are those people as well. People that are meant to hear this will. And Humans in Harmony is a project I'm working on. The idea behind Humans in Harmony is working through the division, the deception, the disconnection that we're all experiencing after 2 years, coming on 2 years of lockdowns, letdowns, and downright lies from people we thought we could trust, meaning the politicians, the leaders of corporations, these sort of people we thought we could trust. They've continuously deceived us and ultimately let us down. And I feel like they've betrayed us. And it's ultimately our responsibility to come together as one unified front and learn to live as humans in harmony with ourselves, each other, and the world around us. And what we need to do for that is come together in community and start to celebrate our strengths and see our differences as strengths and work together as one. And I think that's the key to us. So I'm trying to create, just like you are with SoulFam, an online community with also in-person experiences. I host transformational travel retreats in exotic locations around the world, and I'm now shifting to in-person holistic healing and music festivals. So we'll be launching our first holistic healing music festival here in the States, in Arizona, this coming August, for coaches, leaders, teachers, conscious people that want to connect with other like-minded people, to celebrate, to find the inspiration, to reconnect, to find the truth out about who we are and why we're here. So I'm super excited about this. And again, to be connected with you doing the same sort of work in a different way.
Amazing. That sounds beautiful. I would absolutely love to join. I'm not sure if I'm allowed as a Polish person in the US, but that would be really good to do that. So when you see the vision for the world, for the new earth that we want to create, right? What do you see in this world? What do you feel like could be different than it is right now in comparison? Like, for example, introducing meditation and yoga at school for kids, or other things. Like, what would you say that your vision for the world in 5 to 10 years is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot comes up to me up for me around this. I believe in the law of polarity, and so I think that as we continue to work towards our visions, there's going to be the of love. Ultimately, I believe love, liberty, and life are three words that describe the same thing. So as we're working towards a more harmonious world, a more free world, a more conscious world where we're alive and connected, and all these things, there's going to be a sort of polarity. So I'm really trying to focus in on what I have control over and building my life. The intention behind Humans in Harmony is to really ultimately build a complete parallel structure. A parallel structure is something that runs alongside mainstream society, what's happening now, but is separate from and sustainable without. So we are connected to, we're not going fully off the grid, but we're far enough away from all the stuff that's going on from big cities and these sort of things, so that if we want to go take an airplane or a flight somewhere, we can, but we're not in it once enforcements are coming through. So that's what I see ultimately is working is a sort of community, an in-person community, which is what I'm working with online, and then the in-person events, building out ultimately to this complete parallel structure that'll really support, sustain life, that'll help people thrive in harmony with themselves, with others, and the world around us. And there's a lot of things that come up around that, like how can we get there? But ultimately, it's learning to reconnect with ourselves. You mentioned some really important things. I think something's so, different things speak to different people. So meditation and yoga and movement and a reconnection to our body. But ultimately, what we need to do, what I believe we need to do, is connect our heads to our hearts. We need to reconnect to our physical body and our intuition and the love that we have inside of our heart. This is what unites us all. And we have been disconnected from that and led to live in a world that is so mental and physical and left brained or logical that we've disconnected. And I believe in a way we've been intentionally disconnected from the spirit that energizes our life. And so that's what we need to get back to. We need to get back to treating life as a spiritual experience where everything is sacred. And alongside of this, whatever healing modalities, and we can probably get into some here. I mean, psychedelics has been a big one for me, but it's not a good fit for everyone. Meditation is very accessible to people. Yoga and these sort of things are very accessible. But alongside of this, the living in harmony with the world around us is coming to a way like treating Earth as a living being, which it is, that is, the great mother, Gaia, whatever we want to call it. This has provided us everything we've ever needed. And we need to come into a harmonious relationship with Earth, like a lot of indigenous tribes and civilizations have done before. Pretty much white people came in and started messing things up. But either way, like we need to find a way to reconnect with Earth as well and be in harmony with Earth. So there's lots to probably unpack in here, but ultimately we have to reconnect with our hearts because we're the starting point of all this. Then we need to join our hearts together as one, and then we need to be present and grateful for all that this Earth has given us, and that it continues to provide for us in a way that reciprocates that love and respect so we can live as humans in harmony with ourselves, each other, and the world around us.
Whoa, this is really amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So, what, in your view, are the most effective methods to connect to your heart and to your soul?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's an ongoing journey. But my intention this year, and I've sort of known that I need to do this, but I didn't know what that meant as far as like connecting to my body. I grew up. I'm in my background. I was a Marine Corps. I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran. I served in the Marines for 4 years. I served as a firefighter for 4 years in a very masculine, logical, like programmed way to think. And then I went on this sort of journey about 4 years ago where I opened up and connected to something that's divine. And I've got a taste of this, but I still, even still, I spent about 2 years backpacking around the world and had these incredible experiences, did all these different plant medicines, all these different healing modalities. Like it was incredible. But then actually I landed here where I live now in Florida, and I realized I was still having the same problems. Like I was still pushing myself to burnout, and I was still unhappy, and I was still lacking a lot of things that I left behind that allowed me to live an amazing life for a while. But when I stopped moving so much, they caught up with me. So I really set the intention that I, on my last birthday in October, that I, this year is all about reconnecting with my heart, with my body, getting out of my head and reconnecting with myself. And just like the magic of the world sort of always delivers at exactly the right time, a friend recommended this book called The Presence Process. And I had been thinking, I need to be present. I need to be here now, and I know I need to connect with my heart. And I knew intellectually that I need to do that, but I was like, okay, how? No one has ever like taught me how. I can go to my breath, these sort of things. But either way, this book came at exactly the right time. So and it's very accessible. It's incredibly easy. But this book called The Presence Process has absolutely changed my life in a very short amount of time. So we can talk a bit about that, but if you like. But ultimately, like that book provided a process for me to do what I'm doing. And really all it is two 15-minute sessions of consciously connected breathing. every day for 10 weeks. And there's some readings. There's a weekly reading that you read as you're going through this process for each of the weeks. But it's so simple, and it just shifted so many things in my life that I was struggling with in some ways. And once I did that, once I came back to myself, doors opened up and a lot of things started flowing again. I got COVID like in October, a couple weeks before my birthday, and it took me out for like 3 months. Not with like COVID stuff or like sickness really, but like fatigue, lack of clarity, and all these sort of things. No motivation. Like I couldn't like get off the couch for a very long time, and it forced me to sit with myself. And it was because of the presence, and I'm grateful for that. And it was because of the presence process that I was able to reconnect in a way that I needed to move forward in my life. But I think ultimately it's an ongoing journey. We all have to find what works for us and what's going to work. But the presence process has been the process that I would say absolutely has changed my life the most. And there's been things that, like when I first started meditating like 5 years ago, that was huge, and that was the number one thing. And I've connected with a lot of different plant medicines, ayahuasca and changa and DMT and bufo, like all these sort of like really high level um, psychedelics. But the thing that's most grounding for me is the presence process, because it is so simple. It's a breath and a simple mantra. I am here now in this. And being present is what we need to do during this time, because that's how we can, when we're present with where we are, then we can get to where we want to go. But most of us are thinking in our heads about where we want to be, and it's not where we are. So we're kind of always running from ourselves and chasing our tail. And that's why these same cycles keep repeating. But once we feel into the experience that we are having now, we can alchemize it in our heart and transform it into something that we want to create. We can process the emotions that are creating our physical life experience in a way that's meaningful. And so we are no longer weighed down by the emotional burdens of our past that we've been running from, that we're trying to get away from by planning or doing other things. And we can be where we are, and it will changes our life.
Wow, this is so powerful. So I'm really curious to know what kind of benefits did you see in your life after practicing the presence process for 10 weeks?
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, it's everything is very subtle and simple, and that's what I found also with psychedelics. The lessons you get, I've got, and typically I see, are always very simple. Like be present, be grateful, you know, those sort of things. Okay, that's a very simple, but to put into practice is a whole nother thing. But for me, ultimately, it's been in how I'm feeling in my physical body. I'm able to, I feel the connection. I feel the connection. And it's not fully connected or whatever yet. Like I believe this is a journey and not a destination, and that I can continue to come back. What I say, like come home to myself. But I just feel at peace. I feel calm. I feel present a lot of the time, instead of always thinking about the next thing. I can be fully present with what's going on in front of me, and from that place of full presence, well, then I can create my reality and serve at the highest level. So I think in a sort of general way, I am feeling the presence. But on the outside of that, it's just like a lot of synchronicities, people that I've met, opportunities that have come up. I've got a lot more clarity on the vision around humans in harmony. And actually a lot of it started with humans in harmony. It's been manifesting in different ways. And it's like when I look back on my life, everything makes sense, although it didn't make sense at the time. Now I see how everything's connected, from where I was like Marine, then firefighter, and then leaving that behind, and then starting the retreats and the coaching and all these different things. It makes perfect sense. But either way, when I started with the presence process, or maybe a little bit before, the idea, the word of harmony kept coming into my mind, and during the meditation or the breath work. And I was like, okay, what does that mean exactly? And it kind of like moved further along, and it got to be something a little bit more, and start to take shape. And now it's giving me such clarity. And by the end of the 10-week process, I had such clarity on what humans in harmony was and is, and why, and what we're trying to create for the world, and the importance behind it, and how we can get there. So I mean, presence with my body, just sort of magical synchronicities with people that I've been connecting with, and things that have literally just fallen in my lap. Like, there'd probably be too much context to try to share, but just like incredible things where you're like, wow, this is magical. as far as the connections that are being made. Probably you here, Carolina. This you're one of them as well. But also then the clarity in my life path, my purpose, and what I'm trying to create with humans in harmony.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I feel like presence is such an important factor also when we want to manifest things in our life, when we want to take action on something. Because when we are present, it's like we're gathering all this distracted and distorted energy in all these different directions back to ourselves, back to our center. And so now, when we can be present, we can focus this energy and really direct it wherever it needs to go. But when we are distracted with all these things that happened in our past, in our future, then our energy is distorted, right? So ultimately, anything in the past is not happening anymore. Anything in the future is just the vision. So anyway, we are only always living in the present moment. So the present moment is the most important thing ever because we will never live in the past and we will never live in the future. So yeah, it's so important to be present and to really gather and focus our energy right here and right now because this is where we live. This is where we are experiencing life in the present moment. So, yeah, this is amazing talking about presence. And so, how did this presence process and your plant medicine experiences help you in your business as a transformational coach?
Yeah, for sure. So my the let's see, where do I start with this? When I say a transformational coach, what a transformational coach is to me is someone who helps shift the reality of someone, which changes how they see themselves and show up in the world. It shifts their perspective in a way that allows them to see their life, their path in a new light. It could be as simple as what you brought up around gratitude. Like, I don't think we're supposed to always be having peak states and be always super elevated. We have to learn how to embrace the highs and the lows of the human experience. But it's very hard for people a lot of times when they're not where they want to be. And I'm saying this because this is my experience as well. When I'm not where I want to be, I beat myself up. It's not good enough. Like, and I kind of create this cycle where I don't allow myself to be where I am, and then I can't get to where I want to go. So I get stuck. So just the shift in being grateful that I got COVID and I'm being forced to lay on this couch for a month is something that opens something up inside of me and shifts my perspective, which is going to change how I see myself and my life experiences, which is going to change how I show up in the world, which is going to change the results that I have. And a big part of my strength is providing the systems and structures people need to get more done in less time. And so that's what I ultimately do as a coach. But what led me to that, because what I was experiencing was just constant burnout, because I was always pushing myself to the max, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And probably emotionally, I didn't have the awareness around my emotional body. So mentally and physically, I was pushing myself to the max because it was never good enough, because I was sort of playing out this program of not being good enough that I picked up when I was a kid. So the way I see it is, we go through this sort of imprinting phase when we're children, and the first 7 years of our life, most oftentimes, and especially if there's trauma that happens at this time, we become imprinted without emotion. But even if it's not like physical abuse or some sort of like trauma, it is a trauma that still, like, if someone bullies us or we get picked on or we're abandoned or neglected or even just like disconnected from, even if we have both of our present parents there, but they're not present and we don't have the emotional connection, we start to create this emotional resonance of fear, sadness, anger that really starts to impact our life. And that was my experience. Carolina, are you still there? Carolina, are you okay? Yeah, so this emotional experience of fear, anger, sadness is present, and I went through my stuff as a kid, and I had a really hard time as a child, and I joined the military. It really saved my life. I joined the fire service. That gave me some direction. It's what I thought I'd always wanted to do, be a Marine and a firefighter. But then when I got to this place where I was a firefighter, I was the state firefighter of the year in 2017 in the state of Arizona. It was my childhood dream job. I had everything I ever wanted, but I was deeply unhappy, and I was completely burnt out with a project I was working on, a nonprofit that I had built, and working at the fire service. And a lot of things started to shift for me, and I was just like, there had to be more to the life than this. there had to be more to life than this. And a lot of things were happening in my personal life. My brother was dying of cancer, and I was a machine gunner in the Marines, and there was a shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada in October of 2017 where a guy shot a machine gun at a crowd at a country music concert. And there's just so many things. My best friend from the Marines died of a heroin overdose around this time, and I'm going on heroin overdoses in the fire service. So it really shook me at a deep level, and it forced me to check in with my life and what I desire. And I was like, I can't live this way, as dark as I was. I was a firefighter of the year, and I was smoking weed at work. And then I started having suicidal thoughts. And I realized that I had to get out of this like stickiness that I was in. Otherwise, it's not going to be good. And I can't just keep waiting for retirement for my life to be happy and free. So that pushed me on this journey to eventually sell all my stuff and resign from my childhood dream career and go on this, what ended up being like a 2-year trip around the world. And the way I shifted or started that was I felt the call at ayahuasca. I'm getting to your psychedelics. That's what the story I'm telling here. The I had heard about ayahuasca probably on a Joe Rogan podcast in the years before I left, before I had even considered leaving the fire department. Most people don't do that. It's a sense of security, stability, job, these sort of things. So for me to leave was kind of it was hard, and it was uncommon. But as I heard about ayahuasca, never really thought about it. Hadn't done much with psychedelics other than some like acid at like a festival and stuff like that. And then when it started coming up again, and they say with a lot of these medicines, especially ayahuasca, that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so I started to feel this call to experience ayahuasca. And the start of my trip was going to Costa Rica. I took a one-way flight to Costa Rica in June of 2018 with no real plans of ever coming home. And in that experience or planning out that leap of faith that I went on, I felt the call to sit in an ayahuasca experience. And I went to an ayahuasca retreat for a week in South the medicine a couple of times. And it was, I believe, like a perfect transition for me to leave this life of military fire, frustrations with the systems that be in myself, my life, like the program, all these things. It was a perfect transition to open me up into a different world. It totally shifted my perspective. It was transformational in that it changed how I saw myself and showed up in the world. Now, I had this amazing experience. I connected to this divine, I experienced complete and unconditional love for the first time. And I also experienced in one of the journeys, it was like old grainy, like home video sort of replaying of past experiences of people that I was like my family and friends and these sort of things. And when I laid on my back, it was these happy, joyful like movies, like home videos, laughing and that kind of stuff. And then I flipped on my side and I would start to cry because the feeling around this home video was like I wasn't present, I wasn't grateful, I was missing the opportunity to be here with these people, and they're not always going to be here, so you need to really start to be present and be grateful. So that was the second journey. The first one was all about like love and compassion. It was this incredible journey, this connection to all that is, and it was incredible. And that was my first connection to the love that I am, the love that we are. And it opened my mind in a way that helped me see that there is more to life than the life that I was living, and I was on the right path, although I didn't know what that meant at the time. So I'll stop there. That's sort of what I do as a coach in a way in the beginning there, and how I got connected first with ayahuasca or psychedelics. There's a lot more to unpack there, but I wanted to pass it over to you before I take the whole conversation back from you.
This is so amazing, everything that you're talking about. I've experienced similar feelings on mushrooms, and I feel like all areas of our life can be really affected by these kinds of experiences, right? And I just want to say, I really honor you for leaving everything behind and having the courage to do this, because not everyone has this kind of courage. So, amazing job, man. This is really, really awesome. And so, I'm really curious about the structure in your business that you are presenting. If you would like to share, I would be really happy to hear more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate that. I feel like I didn't even answer your question as I'm thinking about it, about how it's supported my business, because it has manifested as I started coaching while I was traveling to help people move from fear to freedom, create more freedom in their life. I think that's what we, like I said before, like liberty, love, and life are three words to me that describe the same thing. And that's what I'm after is all of that. And so the way I believe that, and so alongside of that, while traveling, I knew that I wanted to help people experience a real and authentic way of the world. And as a part of that, I spent some time in Colombia, 2 months in Colombia. I think Colombia is one of the most underrated countries in the world. It's just absolutely incredible. The people there are the most warming, welcoming people you ever meet. They have a deep connection to, I mean, they're connected to the Amazon, so they have the rich tradition of plant medicines, ayahuasca, they call it yahe there. And also the healers, the infrastructure, all the things that are there are just amazing. So it's an incredible country. And that's led me to hosting retreats previously in Colombia. Actually, all last year we were doing Colombia, but what happened is about a month ago, I found out that they are now requiring the vaccine to come to the country for foreigners, which is something we talked about before this interview. Um, Something that I feel is out of alignment with what we're trying to create in these transformational travel experiences. So what my travels and what my experience with psychedelics provided for me was the courage, confidence, and clarity to start to create my life, to create the freedom in my life that I so deeply desire, because I believe that freedom is life and life is love. And so now getting to your question about the structure, the systems and support. I mean, ultimately we are responsible for creating our life, I believe, and our reality. And the best way to do that is I say simply we need to set ourselves up for success. And the way we do that is we are proactive. We set the future. We're present where we are, but we hook ourselves up with systems, with structure that'll allow us to navigate the inevitable challenges in our life with ease, with clarity, with which leads to more freedom, which leads to the freedom that we're after. So a lot of the stuff I do is work around trauma. I'm training them in the most effective and efficient, least invasive way of dealing with trauma. And I work with people who served in combat. I work with people who were first responders, but also like people who have experienced extreme sexual trauma or extreme child abuse or all kinds of different things. And the people that are here that want to build a business off of that are the people that I really work with. The people who have been through some shit and they're ready to turn their trauma into, transform it into their sense of purpose and where they're going. Because I believe all the things we go through are the things that we are meant to go through, so we can wake up from that and support other people that are a little bit further back than we are on that journey. So a big foundation, the first phase of the program is start to clear out all the trauma, because with trauma driving us at the root, which the emotional experience, which is too painful, whether it's that fear, that anger, that sadness, or shame or guilt, if that's driving us, we can't see clearly what we desire. We're typically not safe. We don't feel safe in our body, so we create more problems for ourselves that eventually leads to the burnout. Eventually leads, like, if we don't feel good enough, we're going to always be trying to perform in our business, which is going to mean we're never going to be satisfied, which means we're never going to be free. We're never going to be able to experience what we're trying to create, because we are ultimately our own worst enemy in that. So a big part of what I do is clear out the trauma, and we can do that in a very easy, not easy. I don't want to say easy because that almost discounts the value that it is, but ultimately very safe and effective way to handle that. So it's no longer driving the negative accidents, diseases, problems we were dealing with in our life. And from there, once we see clearly, without the weight of the trauma, then we can start to implement those things you mentioned before, the self-care, the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves. Trauma's gone. Okay, now how do we start to take care of ourselves? How do we start to embrace the love that we are? Things like the presence process, meditation, self-care habits, whether it's journaling or going for a walk or whatever it might be, finding those things that really fill us up, dancing, singing, creativity, playing an instrument, those sort of things that really fill us up, that in tune, that get us on a vibration, a feeling that really lights us up, that really helps us connect to something that is bigger than us, beyond what our mind can comprehend. That's the second step for me. And then from there, it's ultimately, I'm very good at helping people set up systems and structure to help them get more done in less time. And that's different for everybody for the most part. But ultimately, once you create a template for your life and you start to make habits or a planner or something that's going to really get you, like, you know what you have to do, then all you have to do is do it. That's where the coaching comes in to help you push through those hard spots. Because when you're setting yourself up for success by planning out your stuff, and there's a whole lot of stuff that we can unpack with this, but you're able to really lean in because you know what you need to do. All you have to do is do it. All you have to do is show up. And with a lot of the things we've already talked about, it becomes easier. And if when it's not easier, it's the opportunity to work through and cultivate the muscle of discipline and really do the things you don't want to do, which is going to actually create the freedom in your life that you desire if you're starting a business.
Thank you for sharing that. Amazing. And so, on this note, to create structure and to know what to do next, you need to be able to discern what to do now and what to leave for now, right? So, do you have any specific method that you can recommend of how to gain clarity if someone maybe doesn't really know which direction to go to make their business structure work?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing that comes up to me around that, like, how do you get clarity, is you got to get out of where you are now. You got to get out of the routine that you're in, the city that you're in. And this could be anything from, like, I don't recommend, especially right now, selling all your stuff and traveling around the world. It's not for everybody. It's tough, and it's not just all like butterflies and rainbows when you're doing that. There's a lot of ups and downs, and I'm basically, you do? All right, all right, go for it. Yes. I mean, yeah, fair enough. I do too, but yeah, it's the best thing I've ever done. And I guess more so, like, I recommend it if it feels right to you, but also know that you can't keep running yourself. I guess don't do it if your intention is to not come face with yourself if you're running from yourself. But ultimately, you got to get out of where you are. To start off with the clarity process, you've got to get out of where you are. It can be as simple as going for a hike in nature, taking a weekend away to sit with yourself, or it could be as intense as going like on a 4-day vision quest where you go out and sit in nature and following some native tradition or wherever you might be. They have these in Colombia, they have them all over the States. You go and you sit in nature for 4 days and 4 nights without food and without water. And you really sit with yourself and you experience the vibrational essence that you are, and you realize your purpose, and you realize, why you're here, and you realize what you're here to do. Psychedelics is another thing. Psychedelics is great. With ayahuasca, a couple of times I've had direct contact with my intuition. I ask a question and I immediately get an answer. Because there's not all this mind chatter and this self-doubt and these sort of things. I get it immediately. So psychedelics is something, hiking in nature, connecting to something larger than yourself, going out and serving your community. The thing for me and how I left, when I left the fire service, the idea of service, growth, and action. I said at the time that I believe the best measures of a life well lived are how much you give, how much you grow, and how far you go. And so I went to grad school so I can make a difference on a larger scale. I became a coach so I can make it so I can support people in need. And I decided to go and leave my life behind so I can really start to create my life. And so that's been my journey. But at the same time, the give, grow, go, I think is relevant here. Like, because once you get out of yourself and the same sort of mundane life you might be living, if you're unhappy with it, and the people that are influencing you, and you just go travel, or you go to hike in nature, or you spend some time with yourself and you really sit with yourself, whatever is accessible to you, you're going to get some clarity. I think that's the first step. And ultimately, you can start to, and this is a process I work all my clients through. We start high level, a vision, a personal vision for your life. Okay, what do you want? What do you want to do? How do you want to feel? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to live? Are you in a relationship? Like, do you have kids? Like, where do you want to be 5 to 10 years from now? So I say that's your vision. And then your mission, I call it your professional mission. It's like, okay, you know where you want to go with your vision. You've taken some time to sit with yourself and you know what you want to create. You know how you've got an insight into how your life path has prepared you for this purpose. And you want to now make that a sustainable way to live in the world. Then you need to figure out how you're going to fuel that. I say your mission is like the fuel for your personal vision. It's their professional mission is the fuel to help you realize that. And so then you need to figure out what that means for you. How are you going to fund this? How are you going to create this? How are you going to turn again your path, your pain into your purpose and make it so sustainable for you? And then you can start to break that down a little bit now, a little bit less, or a little bit more short term. So like thinking about a long term goal in 3 years. Okay, you want to become a coach or a healer or a teacher of some kind to help people navigate what you've previously experienced. Let's get a little bit more down to ground level. Like what kind of money do you need to be making? What sort of life are you living in not 10 years but 3 years? So let's break that down. And then what I do from there with my clients is, I think a big part of this too actually is values. So your vision, your mission, and your values is the values are the compass that help you navigate the map, which is your vision. So getting really clear on what's most important to you, and that could even be the starting point. If it's too much to think about a whole big vision, just getting clear on your values, which are what is most important to you in your life. Me, liberty, love, integrity, freedom, life, like all these sort of things, travel, like these sort of things are what's important. So how can I then, and when I have my values serving as that compass, tell me, figure out when I come to a decision point, I have to make a decision. I fall back on my values, what's most important to me, then I'm going to automatically end up where I want to go. That's living in integrity. That's living in alignment with myself. And that is how ultimately I'm going to create the highest experience, the best experience in my life and business. It's when I start to like settle on my values or just like stuff down the discomfort that I'm feeling when things are going against my values that life starts to get very hard and we end up in very dark places. So back to after the 3 year horizon, what I like to do is 12-week years. And I find it the best way to get more done in less time is to shrink up the amount of time you're setting for yourself. Because if I set a 1 year goal right now, I could just mess around for 9 months, completely lose focus on what I'm trying to create or what I'm trying to do in the next year. And the last 3 months, try to cram stuff in. And I think that's how a lot of people end up showing up, whether they have like a big corporation or like they're just starting their business. They get too disconnected from what they're trying to create. So we need to really stay in tune with the vision, which you have an amazing vision with Soul Family. Mine is the humans in harmony. And understanding that one of the ways we're getting there, let's say our professional mission is our podcast and our coaching and these sort of things. But ultimately with our 12-week objective, we're getting really clear on the qualitative and quantitative things, which answer the question, where do we want to be in 12 weeks from now? Where do we need to be 12 weeks from now to make sure we're realizing in 3 years that long-term goal? And then which is based off of the need to be somewhere in 5 to 10 years for that vision. All right. And then once we get down to knowing what I would call our key results are, our 12-week, once we have our 12-week objective, we can get down to our key results. So that's when we're really pushed into getting into the quantitative analysis on how we're going to measure, how we're going to know that we are on task to achieve our 12-week objective, our goal, which is going to lead us to our long-term goal, which is going to lead us to realizing our vision. So I'm breaking this down into a bit more granular, but it's really important to start high level with the feeling, with what we desire, how we want our life to be, how we want our life to be. Anything is possible, it really is. And now let's start to break it down into something more tangible, something we can start to measure, which is where it comes into a weekly practice. Once you know what you are measuring, you're basically breaking this down into critical actions you need to do each day or each week, adding those projects in there to make sure you're moving forward on your goals, and then making sure you're staying accountable, you're taking action to ensure that you are realizing the key results, which realize the objectives or the goals, which realize your vision. And while you're doing that, you're staying in alignment with your values.
I really appreciate you sharing this. And so, one question comes to my mind. I guess that you're often working with these high achievers, and these kind of people usually have this kind of belief in their subconscious mind that they are not enough and they need to achieve and they need to always make things happen to feel like they are enough, to feel successful, to feel, just worthy of love. And so, I feel like I would like to ask you, how do you achieve goals and maintain this structure without feeling the pressure, without feeling like you have to do this, or without feeling like if you don't achieve something or you don't, you know, tick off whatever you had in your structure or on your list, then you're not going to feel enough or you're going to feel stressed if you don't do it. So, of course, you need to maintain the balance of getting stuff done, right? In order to fulfill yourself in this world, to bring service, and to really feel like you're putting something out there and contributing to this beautiful life. But how not to get stressed if you would like to achieve something and you're not getting something done?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think there's a lot with that, and it's a really great question. The first thing that comes up is just we're going to automatically work in the first couple of weeks around all the limiting beliefs around those things, like that are thinking that lead to you thinking that you are what you do, which is not true. We're human beings, not human doings. We're not what we do. Doing is how we create, but being is what's most important. So once we get to the being part, because we're able to peel back the limiting beliefs and negative emotions, the traumas that are fueling that, the lies that we have been given from when we were kids, that imprinting phase, that first 7 years of our life, we can have a lot less of the weight of that on us. So I think that's the first thing. And that's huge. So you got to find a coach that's going to be able to work with that sort of stuff. We have to be able to work with, I think the best coaches are people that help you build a business, like the structures, the systems, but also those that have the emotional component, the emotional awareness of the fact that our emotions, ultimately, these programs are what is driving our behavior. And so until we really get to the root of that and clear those challenging experiences up and help us see them in a different light, if nothing else, then we're going to keep the same cycle going in our life. So that's the first thing we got to do. And the second thing is where it comes into like starting to figure out what you need to do. Well, the quick answer is in your weekly plan, when you're planning out your week, which is something you do every Sunday, then or the Friday or whenever it works for you. You're planning the week before. You're planning the next week the week before. That way, again, you know what you're doing and when, and you just have to show up. You just have to move through the discomfort of doing it. But a big part of that that planning session, setting yourself up for success, is scheduling your time first, taking care of yourself first. If you have a partner, you're scheduling your date night first. You're scheduling your alone time to go walk in nature or to do your meditation and breath work first. So I think that also is going to really support us in making sure our cup is full and we're taking care of ourselves, so we're not creating more problems. So I would say that's the number two thing. After we clear out the trauma, we work on the subconscious, really, ultimately is what we're doing, and we start to really set ourselves up for success. Then a lot of this like stress and burnout isn't going to be as much of a factor because we're really, again, we're hooking ourselves up. We're setting ourselves up for success in this. And then from there, it's just a willingness to feel the experience we're feeling. If it is, we're stressed out, we are these sort of things. And then we enter what I call the cycle of conscious action, which ultimately is intention, action or imperfect action, reflection, and adjustment. There's almost no point in shaming ourselves. That's the emotional imprint that we were given, and it's ineffective. Shame is ineffective. It's one of the lowest vibrational energies that exists. Shame and guilt. There is a time to feel those. Like if you feel guilty because you made a mistake, it's a good thing. But if you're like shaming yourself like your parents did, you're really just creating that same cycle. You're perpetuating that same cycle. So the cycle of conscious action comes into play. So you're not shaming yourself. You're not feeling guilty. You are setting the intention to get X, Y, and Z done, which is coming in the weekly plan that you're doing the week before, on the Friday or Sunday before that next week. You're setting the intention to get X, Y, and Z done. You're setting the intention to achieve these key results that you set out to do because they're in alignment with your mission and vision. Then you take imperfect action. You do the best you can because you're a human being and you're going to do these number of things to make sure you're on track to get what you accomplished done. Imperfect action. Imperfect action. The key word there is imperfect. I mean, I guess they're both key words because you have to take an action, but ultimately you just do your best. That you got to do your best. That's it. And then at the end of the week, you reflect. You reflect. Did you take on too much? Were you stressed out? You reflect on like what you accomplished, what you did, what you compared to what you set out to do, and also how you feel, how you felt throughout that experience. Were you super stressed out? Did you get in a fight with your partner? Did you do all these things that are leading you further away from what you're trying to create with your vision, the feelings you're trying to create? And then ultimately, you're just going to adjust your approach. So then you start to plan your next week and you adjust, you take some things off, you create a longer lunch day on Wednesday because you notice midweek you started to get really tired, which led to you creating more problems in your life and business, which led to more stress and frustration, which led to more problems. It's this sort of cycle. So you do these three things. You take care of the trauma that's at the root of almost all these things. You set yourself up for success by planning your week and making sure to emphasize the need for like self-care, and your time comes first. And then you allow yourself to make mistakes. You take imperfect action. You reflect on what you did right and wrong and what you want to change for next time, and you just adjust your approach every time. And as you step into this cycle of conscious action, you truly can elevate your life in just the most incredible way, because you no longer become the programs that were given to you and just doing the same thing you've always done because you've always done it. You allow yourself to be where you are, take imperfect action from that place, and level up your decision making over time so you become who you were born to be in relation to your vision.
Wow, amazing. So, for everyone who got very inspired by you and would like to work with you, what is the best that people could find you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for that. And the best way to get a hold of me would be on Instagram, action_Jesse. Just shoot me a message, say, hey, I listened to this podcast and XYZ. My website, action-oriented.com, has a bit more information about me, the coaching, the retreats I offer, and what I'm up to in the world. But just say hi on Instagram. I think that's the best way, action_Jesse. I also have a podcast called The Action Hour. You can find that wherever action is sold, wherever podcasts are hosted. And yeah, let's start a conversation. I love to speak with people.
Thank you so much for being here with us today because everything you shared is super inspiring. So, thank you for your beautiful energy. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great to speak with you.